Welcome, Starfarers. This is the Starfield Lorecast. I'm your host from the Robots Radio Network, Tom or Robots, and many other lorecasts, including Fallout and Elder Scrolls. So we're getting ready for some Bethesda stuff. And I am here with the internet's Dave Chaffins. Dave?
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing?
It's good to be here. It's a great day. It's a beautiful day here in wonderful Star. See, I grew up in Bluefield, right? Mm-hmm. But now I live in Starfield.
Yes,
you know?
We all do, and hopefully we will all soon be living in Starfield because there are more rumors and leaks abound. It seems more and more likely that it will be released either this fall or early next year, Q1 of next year. So it looks like we're not too far away from it. And it looks more and more likely as the weeks go by that we will be getting an E3 info dump coming up soon. But hey, man, it's like we're like a real podcast here all of a sudden. You and I both do many shows. We've done many shows. We've done shows together, like the Fallout Hub. And this is now 2 weeks in a row that we've done episodes of this show because we have more and more stuff to talk about, which is super exciting.
That's true. Here's the thing. Let me put a teaser. I'm going to make teasers for our own show. Like, forget these Starfield. Like, I made a whole like, I guess like maybe like 7 or 8 months worth of content on a single trailer and had like plenty to talk about when I was doing the stuff for Fallout 76. So be prepared. They put out an actual trailer for this. It's going to be like, we're going to like dig so deep on that stuff and you're going to learn so much that it's going to be absolutely mind blowing. But for now, it's time for a lot of speculation and opinion on stuff that we absolutely know nothing about. Right.
So this is the source for your information about Starfield and the lore of the world of Starfield, which we don't know anything about yet. So when we get there, we will have all the details for all of that for you. But currently, it's mostly news and leaks and those kinds of things. And we've had some more not video leaks, but just screenshots and things. And I'm not going to showcase them on this episode because that doesn't work great for our audio listeners. And for the most part, people have been really digging into those. There's not a whole lot else there. There's some, like a little bit of logos that show up. There's a spacesuit. And for the most part, it seems like they're still 3 years old. Like that's the speculation about those. If you want to go look those up, there's plenty of sources you can go find those. But we have, for this episode, what I think is even more interesting, and this is potentially, and this, as far as I can tell, this seems very legitimate. In fact, it was a post that went up yesterday and was removed on Reddit about the creation engine and the updates that they've been working on for the creation engine. And so listen through to this episode, and if this episode gets removed at some point for some reason, you will have heard this info and now it is in your brain and they can't steal it from your brain, at least not as far as we know, right? They can't do that, right, Dave?
They can't do that. Here's the thing. The only way that you're going to stop this podcast is by I haven't thought about how they're going to stop it, but if they do this one thing that we definitely don't want them to do,
the Institute, they'll send the Institute, the synths will show up, and then they're going to murder you. That's how that works. So if you get murdered by a synth, you will know that you are onto something, or at least you will briefly know you are onto something, then you'll be dead.
Right.
So anyway, why don't we dig into this? Why don't we take a look at this? Here we go.
Let's dig into that.
Let's transition into that. Which sound should I use? I'm going to use this one.
On the night of June 10th, 2018, Bethesda gave us a glimpse at their new space-based RPG. Ever since then, we've been piecing together information in a series that we call Star Clues.
I will be willing potentially to call some of these things Star Facts.
I think that I think that eventually we're going to come. I mean, I think we've had a few Star Facts. I think that Tunivert, when he was on here, he kind of coined the term Star Facts.
I think we kept going back and forth between Star Facts and Space Facts too, but
Space Facts. Oh, Space Facts. Yeah, that's right. Those are very, very different things. Two very different.
Very different. All right. So this was a post that showed up on Reddit yesterday by a user who has been around for 7 years, Odah P, ODAHP. And the post is basically says, "Hey folks, long time no see. And this is the way we're going to do this, Dave. I will read through parts of this. This is fairly long, and then we will discuss. And then I'll read through the next part, and we'll discuss. I wanted to talk about this much sooner, but waited a little to get more credible information. Since I've waited for a while now, I decided to post an update anyways regarding Starfield and TES 6's next-gen creation engine. This post will include some old but also new information, and the same user posted something about 7 months ago with some details about the creation engine. So this seems to be kind of a running thing with updates, which lends credence to it. Disclaimer, I am by no means an insider. I've talked to some people who might be in a position to know certain things and gathered some of this info on my own, which was either already available on the internet or less. Some of it may be more straightforward, some of it may be more vague and go into the rumor speculation alley. Also, please apologize for my English. If I say something like there is now or the new engine features, please don't take it as a fact, but with a grain of salt. Also, please apologize for my English. So not a native English speaker, but that's totally fine.
So if you mess up anything, I'm going to blame it on this fellow, but I'm not going to blame it on him because he's not. Okay.
Yes. We'll just put all the blame on them. Yeah. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. Next gen creation engine. As everybody knows, the creation engine is the engine that they use for all of their mainline Elder Scrolls and Fallout games. It also was heavily updated and adjusted for Fallout 76. And some of the things that they've been doing for upgrades for Fallout 76 and or Starfield have worked their way into 76, which we can discuss a little bit later. So it says here, in general, let's start with some general facts and interesting things regarding the size of this update the creation engine has received. The number of employees who solely worked on engine upgrades has increased by a magnitude of 5, meaning there's now 5 times as many people working on engine stuff than before. That's not technically how magnitudes work, but it has increased 5 times. Sorry for the confusion. This is coming from Todd Howard himself. They now have several core engine programmers and various other coders and programmers working full-time on engine stuff. Previously, they didn't have their own engine team, but rather upgraded their engine on the fly throughout development time of their next game. So 5 times the number of people working on it, and that group is now 100% just working on engine stuff and has been for years now. This overhaul, this is a quote, this overhaul on our engine is probably the largest that we've ever had, maybe larger than Morrowind to Oblivion, which was Todd talking about this, what was that, a year or two ago at this point. And he's right, they did a lot. Like I said, they now have an entire dedicated team to engine-related work, which is why it took them longer than expected. This is going to power Starfield and all games after. Even an outside company called The Forge is helping them out with updates and customizations to their engine creation. This is going to be big, B-I-G, separated by spaces. All right, so here we go. This is the nitty gritty. This is the good stuff.
I mean, I already believe it because they said 5 times the something.
I just have to, every time there's a big thing, I'm going to hit that button. So we can kind of jam on it a little bit. So okay. You were already into it when they said 5 times the size of the team? Yeah,
I was already into it when they said 5 because, you know, Todd Howard likes to come out and he goes 5 times the level of detail. Mm-hmm. It's like we have reconfigured the universe to be 90% more fun. And you're like, oh, wow, 90%. That's a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of maths when you really think about it. That's like, and he gets out there and he's in his nice leather jacket. He's out there styling and profiling, you know. Eventually I'm going to get my hair to the level of Todd Howard, but I don't think it's like a really flat Conan right now. Eventually, you know, we're just going to all get on those style levels. But yeah, that's what made me think. I was like, this got to be true because, you know, 5 times the staff or whatever.
Yeah, and every time he says things like that, all the ladies like swoon, you know, like, oh, Todd. Like an old cartoon where that happened. I don't know. All right, so visuals, graphics, rendering. This stuff most people usually only care about when they hear engine upgrades. This is kind of what you think of at first, right? Visuals and graphics, which is why it's at the top of the list. In 2018, BGS implemented Vulcan API into their engine. Do you know what Vulcan is, Dave? Are you aware of this?
It's the guys that go like this, and then they pinch you on the neck, and you fall down.
Yep. And they also now run around in our computers, and they are an API that has been, as far as I am concerned, designed to take the place of things like DirectX when designing a game or something like that. And it also, I believe, works better, or at least originally worked better on AMD instead of NVIDIA, but both cards now run it really, really well. Anyway, it was another way of, I don't know, doing graphic stuff. We'll just leave it at that. As I'm not an expert in that regard, I can't really tell you what kind of improvements we'll see because of that. Only A, it probably makes ray tracing more possible, and B, it's something a lot of games are using nowadays, which is true. It's there are a lot of games where you can even choose on PC to use the Vulcan API or DirectX.
And I really like it when the games like on like a console game or something, like they've been adding the additions at the new gen to say, okay, I want to do ray tracing, but I don't want it to do like too much ray tracing. I want it to do like the right amount of ray tracing so they can still get 60 FPS. Like that option, that like middle option, I'm like, that's good.
Yeah. So level of detail, which is redundant, LOD detail, rendering distance, volumetric and atmospheric lighting, as well as subsurface scattering and realistic space screen reflections will see remarkable improvements. This is part of the lighting segment. So these are all specific things that your graphics card can do. Level of detail would be things like the resolution of the textures or the maps for like the number of polygons around things. Rendering distance is one of those things that we've seen that allow you to see further off and things don't pop up as you get closer. Volumetric atmospheric lighting, that has to do with things like smoke and particulates in the air. And then subsurface scattering has to do with things like the way light moves through materials, especially skin, which make faces and, hands look more real. And then realistic space screen reflections. So that, that's good for things like reflective materials and mirrors and those kinds of things. So it goes on and says, new layered material system. Think of a vast library of decals in all sorts of shapes and sizes easily being applied onto surfaces. Games like Star Citizen or Doom Eternal use this tech to easily change the looks of a wall or any kind of asset. It's fast, easy, and very modular, perfect for creating or changing the environments.
I'm curious, I'm curious how much synergy, if there's going to be more synergy with Bethesda Studios of because they have the id Tech engine, like they have that over there. They have the Void engine at Arcane, and I think the most recent Evil Within used that for its engine, and then they have the Creation engine. I'm curious how much of those are going to kind of meld together and kind of work with each other. I'm curious about that.
Well, something like this seems like kind of like when EA put all their eggs in the what was it, the Battlefield engine, whatever that was called. The Frostbite engine, right? And then they went from just using that on Battlefield to using it in like soccer games and everything because it was so robust that they could use it on everything and it worked. So that would totally make sense. Plus, a lot of, we talked with a number of people at Bethesda over the last few years, and they're some of the people from the id studios that they acquired over the last few years have been working on as probably part of this team working on the engine. So that would only make sense. Those guys have a lot of experience with engine creation.
Right, and the benefit of that engine is it's highly modular. The Creation Kit has always been pretty modular, and so upping those graphic levels, I think, is a lot harder to do when you're running something still accessible to people. Like when you're coming with it from the mindset of Bethesda, BGS games are going to have mods. At some point, they may not have them right at the beginning, but eventually, this engine is going to support mods.
Oh yeah, and that's coming up soon because that's probably one of the reasons why Microsoft was so interested in acquiring Bethesda was part of that as well.
Yes.
So Yeah. So, and this goes back to, and we talked about this on the Fallout Hub. We've talked about this a lot where the fans keep saying things like, oh my God, they need to ditch that engine. They need to get a new engine. And it's the ship of Theseus, where you replace enough parts of the ship and is it even the same ship anymore? Right. Like this, for all intents and purposes, will be and act like a brand new engine. They're starting with some sort of foundation and eventually changing everything as they go forward. So anyway, there's more detail here. They're using reality capture for archiving, photographing, and capturing all the real world assets, which if you are somebody who works on game stuff, maybe you're going to be familiar with reality capture. It's all one word. For shadows, right now, Creation Engine handles shadows in a different way than other game engines do. Shadows, shadow draw distance, and shadow quality will be much better from now on. Right now, the way the engine handles shadows is by using the CPU, which is common. This is one of the things that in PC games, if you feel like you're getting a low frame rate, but it's not because you're GPU bound, it's your CPU bound, then reduce the quality of the shadows and your frame rate will jump instead of the GPU. This will change with new renderer as they implemented. The days of ugly shadows shall be over, which is awesome. And if ray tracing is implemented into the new engine, expect it to handle a lot of the shadowy aspects of it. So this leads me to think that there will be some use of ray tracing in order to render the shadows rather than the traditional way that they've been doing it.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to kind of... If you're doing, from what we've seen, from what little we have seen, there's a lot of metal in Starfield. I feel like I'm like pulling from nowhere with this, but there's going to be a lot of like ships. Like the ships are pretty much confirmed. I think satellites are pretty much confirmed, and I think planets are pretty much confirmed. Like all of those things, like the reflections from those, are what makes them interesting. So like. If the sun's not shining on it, like you're not getting that level of if they have solar panels or if they have a number of different things, like you're not really understanding the depth or the detail of that, which I feel like in other mediums is made up for by lens flare. Playing Mass Effect is one of those.
right yeah, and I've talked about the Expanse on the show last time, and the way that they render the ships and the space stuff is really, really cool. I mean, it's very, very well done. If we have that level of graphic fidelity for the ships and the shadows that the ships cast on themselves and the objects, or like when a planet or goes behind the shadow of a moon, and you have that kind of effect, very, very cool. So now we're moving into lighting, which makes sense for talking about shadows.
Right.
BGS is now using real-time global illumination / dynamic lighting tech called Enlighten from Silicon Studios. This is another one of those reasons why this rings more realistic and true, is because of the use of these very specific names, and even Silicon Studios is like calling out the studio that they are using that technology from. Global illumination adds a lot of realism to a scene and can do wonders in games. That's all it says about that. But global illumination is something that a lot of games have been using now for a while. Ray tracing, this is the big new buzzword. This is where, if you're not familiar with this is one of the things that the new consoles can do, that the newest graphics cards can do, where they actually can follow through with the... it's not... Like the way that an individual light will send photons is basically the way this works. So the path of the photons and then the changing of the way the photons land on the textures that they hit, or the way that they go through say glass and then it colors the lighting, like those kinds of things. This is the way that light actually works in our world, and now we are getting closer and closer to being able to implement that realistically in games. And there are, like Dave mentioned, there are different levels of that where you just do shadows or you just do light sources, but full ray traced games, like if you play Minecraft, the Minecraft update that allows you to use ray tracing is ray tracing all of the lights. And so now you have that full experience. But that's way more taxing. That's why it works on Minecraft, because the textures are so, and the shapes are so rudimentary.
Right.
Anyway, it goes on, it says, before anyone gets hyped about it, no. Pause. There is almost no indicator that future games will support ray tracing due to the changes they've made, and now having a core engine programmer team, they might support it. However, so it sounds like this part is very speculation that the person doesn't really have a whole lot of info about this. Quote, so you're telling me there's a chance? Yes, there's a chance. A lot can happen within 3 to 5 years. However, if their next game Starfield supports ray tracing, I doubt it was a design decision from the very beginning. So it looks like they're quoting information that they may have had like 5 years ago. But then again, 5 years ago, we didn't have a ton of information that the the graphics card industry was moving into ray tracing as heavily as they are now. So there's
ray tracing really only got pretty sexy in like the past 2 or 3 years, and that became the thing. Like I forgot what the thing was before that. There was something before that was like, maybe it was like water effects or something like that, or there was something, I forgot what it was, and everybody talked about this thing and it's like, when you think about ray tracing, it's like, okay, like I don't need Mario to have ray tracing. Like I don't need, just like regular old games to have ray like that seems like an excess, but now it's kind of the benchmark for a lot of stuff, because I guess that's graphically intense. I know more about RAM than I know about GPUs. Yeah,
it is very graphically intense. That's why only like the top end graphics cards use it. That's why they had to wait in order to release that with this current console gen. You turn on ray tracing in something like Cyberpunk, and your frame rate drops by half. Like it just tanks the frame rate. But there are ways that they're using AI in the hardware in order to deal with that, which there's a whole nother topic. We can go into that another time. But yeah, my guess is it wouldn't make sense for Microsoft to want to acquire them and use this across multiple games if it didn't include ray tracing, because that's such a big selling point of the Xbox consoles. So animation. Their new engine will support / power an entirely new animation system, since future games such as Starfield will have to support 0G, and now for the first time in a BGS game ever, working ladders. Working ladders. Can you think of a BGS game that has a working ladder?
I mean, that you actually climb up? No.
None. Mm-hmm. No ladders. There are no ladders in Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Oblivion. None.
Yeah, I can't think of an actual ladder that you climb up, because like, how did they simulate that? I don't remember the like camera being like if it's first person, like where it shakes back and forth and you're walking up something. Yeah, no, it's all stairs. It's all stairs and elevators. So wait, you're telling me there's going to be ladders in this game? Is that what you're telling me right now?
There's going to be ladders. But if you think about it, like if you have a spaceship, you have to kind of have ladders.
I mean, but if it's in 0G, you don't. You just need handlebars.
Mag boots. You need just mag boots and handles.
Or just like some handles, like, you go to the international, if you go to the International Space Station, like any, Sunday trip would, you're not going to have a lot of ladders there. I bet you there's not going to be a lot of ladders. There's going to be a lot of handles.
If any of you are ladder experts or space experts who have experience with ladders, please write us, let us know. Join the Robots Radio Discord, send us a note. All right. So it goes on. It says its animation system is going to have to support a whole lot of new animations. This, in my opinion, is going to be one of the most interesting engine updates Creation Engine has ever received. Animaniacs recently switched to Autodesk Maya to create / animate their animations. Maya is one of the industry standards for animating in video games. Other companies such as Naughty Dog or Ubisoft use it as well. It's only a minor change and probably won't change much, but I thought to mention it as well. Another one of those reasons why this rings accurate is like, why mention that unless you just have the info and want to share it? Because it's like saying like, the company switched from using Firefox as a browser to Chrome. It's like, well, okay. I mean, they're slightly different, but that's fine. Like, okay. So facial animation, expect to see a huge leap over facial animations. General improvements. Well, that's going to be nice, right? Better facial animations. Makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
general improvements: character movement and controls, predictive foot IK. I believe that's like kinesmatics, where if you're standing and you stop and you're like, say, on, you know, the edge of something, one of your feet will actually touch the ground correctly. You know what I'm talking about? Or like
yeah, and not like
stair. Yeah.
Right, and not like Wile E. Coyote, you know, when he like goes, he's like, you know, acting like that there's a floor there, and you've got like characters sitting on the edge, and they have their foot on absolutely nothing.
Right.
They're just standing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cloth simulations, bone scaling, which personally has me hyped for modding purposes.
I mean, why didn't they add bone scaling to Skyrim?
I guess that wasn't a thing. More advanced player customizations, which also improve upon more diversity in NPCs. So bone scaling is like, I would imagine like the bones of your character have to do with the way it animates, right? Just like in your real bones. So different people, different objects that animate have a bone structure underneath them, and the bones can only bend at the joints, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So like being able to scale those bones in different ways. Makes sense.
I was thinking like they put scales on bones, and so I was like, well, that's like that seems like a Skyrim thing.
It's
they should have done that.
Put
the scale on the bone and call it a day.
Call it a day. Then
dragons in Starfield, maybe. Who knows?
We don't know. Then Havoc Behavior. Havoc is the physics software that a lot of games use.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen the intro screen, I suppose.
Right.
For that.
Yeah, and for like what, 15, it's almost 20 years now, you've seen like Havoc used in this game. Havoc Behavior has been replaced with a custom animation system, which doesn't mean Havoc is gone, replaced entirely. So it looks like they're using Havoc in some ways, but have gone to custom animations in physics. Then we've got physics. 60 FPS cap is gone. Of course, this is going to be implemented from 76 into Starfield and every other game. Tying the physics in game to the frame rate may have worked in the past for them, but also came with a huge set of limitations. Everyone should be thankful it's gone. Do you know about this, Dave?
I'm not familiar with that. No, explain it to me.
Okay, so in games like Skyrim and before, one of the problems was, of course, as time moves on and you get better hardware, especially for PC games, you could run the games at higher frame rates. So if you unlocked the FPS, the physics of the game was tied to the frame rate. So the physics would get crazy. It would get all wonky. Because if the frame rate wasn't stuck at 30 or 60, like it is on a console, then like the physics would just go nuts. And so it would basically break the game. So tying physics to frame rate made sense for a period of time where the frame rate was always going to be stuck to a certain amount. But people are playing games with 240 FPS on their, super high end systems, and the new consoles are able to run at higher frame rates as well.
Higher frame rates too.
Yeah. So
the thing that I'm interested, it's interesting to say that, because I was reading an article the other day that was talking about people are like, are they going to up-res? It was maybe like a few months ago, LA Noire, if they were going to up-res that. But the thing is, they did a bunch of facial capture for that with like actual actors and stuff, where it was more like trying to capture all their faces so you could tell when they were, because this is a detective game. And so when they're lying or when they're, unsure about something, like you're supposed to be able to read their facial animations, but they captured all of those at 30 FPS. And so if they put the game up to 60 FPS, they don't have capture data for their faces that runs at 60 FPS. So it would look absolutely weird. It would look so straight. It would look like they were talking like this with the rest of the world, like Clash of the Titans,
like the old. Those old movies where the special effects were done with motion capture of like claymation, and the claymation motion capture was like 12 frames per second or something, and the movie's running at 24, so it didn't sync up. It looked really dumb.
Yes, correct.
Yep. So let's see, where was I? I added physics right under animations because they usually go hand in hand. Bethesda isn't going to ditch Havoc. Instead, it will be further improved upon and modified to support things like zero-G environments and other stuff that will be needed for Starfield. This is also why BGS now needs a dedicated core engine programmers team. People seem to suggest that they might ditch Havoc, but that contradicts to what job listings in the past have indicated. They instead improved on it and maintained it. Now animations, streaming, and physics are going to be vastly improved. So good news there. Sorry if you hear dogs barking in the background.
That's fine. That's literally my life. Every single podcast, I am like, and now my co-host, my annoying dogs. Welcome to the show.
Yay! Then it says, I can see the usual stiffness and staticness that we are so used to in BGS games being a thing of the past. RIP.
Well, I get real stiff about a BGS game. You know?
Yeah. I know how you do, Dave. I know. I've seen it. Next up, we have procedural gen streaming, cell shading tech, NPC and AI stuff, pathfinding, and then game systems and stuff. But we should take a minute and talk to our listeners because you guys are awesome. Here we go. So usually on most of my shows, this is where we talk to our patrons, but we don't have a Patreon yet. So I guess we just need to say thank you guys for listening. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're as excited and pumped for Starfield as we are, because Dave, on a scale of 1 to absolutely freaking awesome, how pumped are you?
Absolutely freaking awesome. On a scale of a Cuban pork sandwich to a small potato, how excited are you for Starfield?
Wait. Mine went from low to high. Did you go from high to low? Or did you just have a really high, like you love potatoes?
On. I mean, think about it.
I'm going to say a spaghetti and meatballs, but like the really good traditional spaghetti and meatballs that like the old Italian lady makes when you go visit, like Naples.
Mamma mia.
Yeah.
Mamma mia.
I'm off the scale, friends.
You're off the scale. Yeah.
So anyway, listeners, viewers, thank you for tuning in. We love that you are here. I'm sorry that you are now hungry, Birch Games. We do this show live at twitch.tv/robotsradio. We haven't set to a regular schedule yet, but this seems to be a Tuesday thing, at least for now. We'll figure it out.
Here's the thing I like right now is when we don't have Fallout Hub, just have a Starfield. Just to have a Starfield party.
Yeah. We'll do it. Maybe we'll do it every other week. Yeah.
And then if there's something, then we'll get into something. But just remember.
Yeah. And some of this stuff comes hot and fast. So do make sure that you are subbed to this podcast, because there may be times where me or Dave just put out a 15, 20, 30-minute episode just to discuss some hot leak that came out, because that's the state that we're in right now. That's it. Like, we are at the holy crap. You better stay aware, not away. Dave is cracking up. It's messing me up.
I can't.
Hot leaks coming in.
When the hot leaks are coming. Oh God.
Yeah. Well, that's the phase we're at. You never know when the internet will explode with a hot leak in your face. And so we are here to report on that when it happens. But that's what we got now. Later on, of course, we're going to talk about the lore of the game when we learn more about that stuff as well. But make sure that you're staying tuned for that. And if you have friends who are into this as well, make sure that you let them know. Hey, these guys are telling me all the info I need to know about the Starfield and the land of the stars. And is that a new thing now? Land of the Stars? Anyway.
The Land of the Stars, yeah.
All right. Well,
it's the new Disney World ride.
We've got so much more info to get to. So why don't we move on to that?
Since the dawn of time, there have been storytellers who teach through their stories. These myths give rise to fundamental truths, and these truths shape our collective experience. Yet these myths are not something of the past, and today they engage us more fully in the story itself. Video games allow us to live the lives of our favorite myths. My name is Blue Crew 86, host of Focus Fire Chat, and I want to invite you to explore our modern-day myths with us. Join with us as we explore the stories, the mythologies of the Destiny franchise, as well as other games. Let's explore together.
I'm just going to keep using that sound effect for like everything.
Here's the thing. Now that you're back, because I was inspired by a lot of things when I did the music for this. And once we get the game out, I'm going to change it up a few things. I've already got kind of mindset to do it. But now that you're playing Mass Effect again, when you go to the like lounges and stuff, that's what I wanted that to feel like. Because the music in the lounges is always like a little creepy. Like, it just sounds like a little sleazy, but it's like kind of weird at the same time. And you're listening to it and you're like, this seems like what they think a like space nightclub would sound like. And so I went for that same sound of like, and then you've got the sorry people that are like,
they're just dancing.
Just dancing, just having a good time. And you're like, what do people do here? Huh? What do they do here? Anyways, we've been in Mass Effect. If you're into the new Mass Effect Legendary Edition, check out the Mass Effect Lorecast, which is another podcast by me and a different host. But here, let's talk about procedural gen streaming. Procedural generation has always been a part of the creation engine. Back in Oblivion times, their forest generation tech was incredible. Never before had we seen such detail and procedurally generated forests in a video game. Do you remember this, Dave? Do you remember this? The forests were like, oh my God, those trees look like real trees. And the internet was on fire. Dim trees.
So this time, a lot of focus has been put on procedural tech, which is understandable when you want to make a space exploration-based video game. This is where Starfield is probably going to set itself apart the most, apart from, well, being in space from Fallout and Elder Scrolls, being that Fallout and Elder Scrolls aren't really in space. Rendering distance, quote, 16 times the detail.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes.
Yeah. Yes, that ain't a joke. Rendering distance was one of the major improvements in Fallout 76, which is true. In Fallout 76, you can see all the way across Appalachia from one place to another. You get up in a high point and you can see like real far. And has been further improved. That's what it says here for Starfield. If you're flying around in your spaceship, which is also a fast moving object, you will need a much more improved rendering distance to see objects like other spaceships, asteroids, planets, and stations. That makes a lot of sense to me because we don't move around that fast in other games that use the creation engine. You're never riding a car or a vehicle that's going fast at all.
That's true.
So cell streaming tech. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest changes. Cell loading and streaming has been improved with every title so far, but this time it's going to be the biggest jump, as I think this was one of the biggest hurdles Bethesda had to figure out throughout the development of Starfield and their next generation creation engine. If you're going to fly in your spaceship in space or in atmosphere, you're going to have to make substantial changes to the way world cells are loaded in and out. So world cells are kind of, think of it like, I believe this is kind of like in Minecraft when you like move real fast and like an entire section pops in. Mm-hmm. It's like the world is sectioned off into these little squares, more or less.
Okay. So what you're trying to tell me is they up the mitochondria of these cells because, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cells.
Right. Or if you enter a building and you have to like load into the building, that's probably its own cell. But
I prefer the 7th grade translation of that. Thank you very much.
The controversial Star Wars mitochondrian thing. SSDs facilitate quick content streaming will definitely help out on that regard. And this is another quote from Todd, when we saw what we could do with the new tech, which is a thing Todd said, I guess. He did. I remember him saying that, but I guess that applies here.
When we saw
interior cells, more and more interior cells are part of the world space nowadays, as you can see from Fallout 76. More cluttering objects and more complex world space cells are going to be the norm, and further advancement for Starfield and beyond. This is one of the things that came about in last gen tech when all of a sudden there was just like lots of little objects in every room, right? Like you could clutter the room with tons of little things. So there's going to be more and more of the ability to do that, it seems.
Cool.
Cool. All right, moving on. NPC AI. Per Todd Howard's words, future games will offer a lot more NPCs on screen than previous games. This isn't directly a thing because of engine upgrades, but everything is connected in a way, such as the more fine-tuned and upgraded creation engine is, and the better the consumer tech is, the more will be possible to bring on screen at the same time. So we talked about how, like, you know, battles in Skyrim between like large factions were like, you know, 20 people on screen. And it was like, this is a big battle. And it's not really. You will be able
when you have the big, like, you go to the camp and then you're like, we're going to attack their stronghold. And it's like 10 people and you've got 10 people and you're like, okay, how many people live in Skyrim?
Right.
This is a nation. Are you kidding me? This is like the smallest. This is like smaller than my high school. Yeah.
It's like little villages just having this like fight. It's not even the size of like a full football team. You'll be able to see entire cities filled with lots and lots of NPCs on screen. I do not believe they're going into the direction of Cyberpunk, but more like what we're used to from them, just with more NPCs. Which makes sense. You know, like large camps or the cities from Skyrim or Fallout, but with more actual people walking around and, you know, maybe more buildings and things to go see.
Right. I'm thinking like you're going to come to an area like in like deep, like the more I think about Starfield, the more I think about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And you're going to come to like the bar or whatever, that like big open area, like the atrium area. And there's going to be all kinds of people walking around. I can see it. Imagine like Diamond City looking like a city, like with a bunch of people bustling around doing their little tasks, like going on their little things, like kind of like how Watch Dogs Legion was kind of like that, where everybody was like trained to like, you know, and it wasn't like and now the NPC has decided it's going to get coffee. Like they had like a schedule. So it was like from 7 to 8 a.m. they were getting breakfast at this location. And then from 8 to like 4, they were working. After work, they go to the pub, and at night they sit in the park, and then they go to their like, it's like there was a limited schedule for them. And it'd be cool to see like something like that in a Bethesda game where like NPCs have kind of like a scheduled activity, and you kind of see it and know, like, you know, it's not just like Villager 1, that kind of stuff. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. So Radiant AI, speaking of that, will make a return and be more advanced than in previous games. Random spawn entities in space is going to be very interesting. There's no more information about this specifically, but I think that means things like you get in your spaceship, you're flying from one planet to another, and you come across stuff along the way. Like you detect like a derelict spacecraft and you go check it out, or pirates show up and try to attack your ship, you know, like things like that. Or, you know, like those pirates are on a schedule across the universe, and it's part of like you're saying, the pathing. Right. They stole something from the space station that you're going to, and they're heading to the one you just came from. So you're going to cross paths with them. Which could be like how they really talked about, was it like Red Dead Redemption, where they were like, if you kill somebody, their wife may come and berate you, or their children will grow up and like want revenge on you, or like if you steal money from this person, then they're not going to be able to buy their dream house. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you even into, man? That's awesome. Voice modulation tech for NPCs. With this, you can add lots of variety to NPCs' voices without needing a bazillion different voice actors. This sounds cool, and I have to wonder if it's how complex it is. Like, it's got to be more than just here. Let's just try this. Okay, so that's got a lot of reverb, but this will work, right? Like, I'll say the phrase, "Hey, I need a lift to the moon."
Hey, I need a lift to the moon. Hey, I need a lift to the moon.
It's got to be better than that, right? Where they just like pitch shift the voices. Yeah.
Well, I have seen. Well, I just want the game just to be like one, like if it's just like one voice actor for everybody, like it's just Wes Johnson, but they modulated it so that it's like, he's everything. Like that, they pretty much, he's
right.
It's kind of like, what was I can't remember. No point. I don't want to derail us there. I can derail us later.
The back of the box text says something like 7 billion voice lines. And then it like there's an asterisk that says all by Wes Johnson.
And Andy Serkis performs every role in motion capture.
Yeah, right. So another similar point to the thing you brought up, pathfinding. Todd already mentioned to expect improvements on AI pathfinding, and hey, if everything else gets an update on the engine, then why not pathfinding? You'll need tech to support, for example, pathfinding in zero-G environments. In space isn't 2D. You can't just throw Doritos everywhere and expect ships and spacesuiters to follow them. Which makes sense because all the other games, although there's like mountains and things, there's hills and stuff, are all basically along the ground, right? Mm-hmm. It's just kind of a bumpy 2D plane rather than like, okay, now you have to go up or down. Space is a 3D environment, which requires a lot of changes and new stuff for the creation engine. They never really had real 3D traversal environments in a BGS game. This is, in my opinion, is going to be one of the most interesting things. I can see how creation engine will handle it. I also hope that this works its way back into things like Fallout 76 so that like the robot walking around actually doesn't get, off the path and has to go all the way back to the node it was at before and then continue from there. Like that's still kind of janky and old.
Right. Yeah, I'm with it.
Features and game systems. We're getting kind of close to the end here, and then modding is the last thing we're going to talk about. So stay tuned for that. This part,
I've got a small story for us to speculate on as well.
Yes, and then your wonderful story. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. So this part of my write-up has not really something directly to do with next-gen creation engine, but its improvements will directly have an impact on the game systems and new features. Here we go, Dave. Ladders. Yes, ladders will be in the game. I think I said that above already. Yes, you did. Flyable ships. Ship customization with an S instead of a Z. Zero G. That's a different one. Artificial gravity. Not per se a game system probably, but still something cool lore-wise. This might be cool for a few different ways. And I'm drawing on the Expanse for this and real physics here. Gravity on planets and things like that makes sense. Gravity on like the moon being less than Earth would be cool. Like you land on a planet that's smaller, it has less gravity. Gravity on a space station with a rotating gravitational system is cool because things don't fall down. Gravity still pulls you downward, but things fall sideways because of the rotation. I wonder if that's going to be a thing. And the spaceships in the Expanse have artificial gravity while they are flying because they're at a constant acceleration in that direction.
Right.
And they're basically designed, and I have to wonder if this is going to be a thing. They're designed as if they are, imagine a spaceship is basically an office building flying up, so that the acceleration is pushing you down into the floor. So if a spaceship is moving at a constant acceleration, then it makes it feel like gravity is actually there pushing you downward. So I have to wonder how accurate that's going to be, but they're going for like real world physics type stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if that shows up. All right. Space and ship to ship combat. Cool. And then for fans of games like FTL, crew management system. Yes.
I mean, you got me there. Because I love some FTL. I love some. I'm a huge FTL, and then the next game, Into the Breach. Holy crap. Those games are great. If there's something like that in Starfield, we're good to go.
Think about it though. Like, what if this all makes sense, and the more we talk about this stuff, the more I get what I think is a clear picture of where we're going with this. Take your camp in 76, or even more accurately, the base you build in Fallout 4. Mm-hmm. Right, and you've got different people, and you can say like, okay, you're gonna watch you're gonna sit on this thing and watch for enemies that are coming and shoot at them. You're gonna run this little booth over here. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. You can kind of tell the NPCs where to go in your little base. A spaceship in this is going to be like a way more complex base that you build that you can also move from one location to another. So as you come across people that you add to your crew, you give them roles inside the ship. This totally sounds like a very possible thing, which is really kind of exciting because now, I mean, again, we're talking like The Expanse, the game. You know, like you meet some people, you go on a quest, you grab one of them, they become a companion. So they end up becoming someone who crew members your ship. And now they have stats that mean that they're really good at the gun systems, or they're really good at navigation or communications or whatever. And you put them on that section of your ship. You build out a new section of the ship, which gives them more stuff that they can do, like all of that kind of stuff.
I'm just laughing like to myself because if they have like if they're working on like making more NPCs and making them more in depth, and let's say you got Barbara and she's really great at guns, but there's a level of customization that you go in your ship and you're like, I'm going to put you on the guns, Barbara. But then it's like, okay, Barbara, guess what? I'm renaming you. Your name is now Gunner 1. Like that's what we're going to be calling you. Forget Barbara. Barbara never happened. And you're also going to wear a nurse outfit while you do that.
Yep. Yes. And hopefully like a, Mr. Fuzzy outfit with like the big head and then, all of that stuff. Who knows? Who knows? But this sounds exciting because like what happens when you're in the middle of a space battle, but do you get to control the ship directly, or do you have to rely on the quality of the people that are, in your ship? What happens if you get boarded? Do you all fight as like people come into your ship? Does gravity go away all of a sudden and you go from like moving at a trajectory where you have artificial gravity to not? Do you have mag boots? Do you have to like when you're in combat, do you have to make sure that you equip your spacesuits so that if air pressure goes out, you can still breathe? Like,
all right, is it gonna be more like a Star Fox or something where you're like flying the ship and shooting the guns and using all this stuff, or is it gonna be something like the Millennium Falcon ride in Disney World, where it's like you got a pilot and a gunner, and you've got somebody who's manning the cargo. Like you have like these roles to find. I'd be really interested in that kind of game. That's what I've always wanted from something like No Man's Sky, where like you like, okay, I'm gonna get a crew and I'm gonna be if you're a game where you can play with your friend where you're like, I'm gonna be the pilot, you're gonna be the gunner, we're gonna go fly a smuggling mission, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's good stuff. I like that stuff.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to your fun story, we've got to talk modding. It says here, next gen creation engine will be better than ever for modding, and also push Microsoft's platform-wide modding system for consoles, which is coming at a later date, which leads me to believe that they're going to want to use this engine for other things that Microsoft is working on. That's it.
That's all.
That's it. So, but that makes sense. Like they've had success in the past with modding, so why not make sure that this game works for mods?
With that, yeah.
And Microsoft is going to eat that up because that means that people are going to stick with their subscriptions or their Xbox platform in order to make sure that they can keep on playing the newest mods and all that stuff. Which stay tuned here for this show because we'll be bringing up that stuff too in the future as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's why Skyrim is still a thing. I think that's why Fallout is still a thing, especially with the accessibility of those mods, especially on consoles. Like you can download a bunch of stuff from there, like a universe. Like even on PC, you could have done mods with 3 New Vegas, like all that different stuff, and there was a ton of stuff. But now mods are more mainstream when it comes to most consoles that Bethesda games are on. So that makes sense to me. That's how you sell Skyrim a billion times,
Yep. So he finishes up this and says next gen creation engine will be better than ever for modding and also push. Oh, we already read that. He says also, okay, I think that's it for now. I'll probably update each individual section when something comes to mind again, which I may have forgotten to talk about. This post again was taken down, so maybe not. Again, this entire list is a mixed bag of known things, facts, but also speculation, stuff based on rumors and leaks, what people have told me behind the curtain, and also what is publicly available on the internet. Some of the stuff listed here might or might not show up in the game. Some of it is to be expected and guaranteed. We'll see about that very, very soon. Smiley face. So it looks like at least these are all things that were intended, if not will come to fruition.
Yes.
So anyway, cool stuff. I thought that would be fun fun to talk about. I hope you guys have some thoughts on this as well. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, then check out the Starfield Lorecast channel on the Robots Radio Discord and come let us know. Dave, you had a story to share.
I did have a story to share, and here's the thing. I'm gonna watch me do this gun trick real quick. I mean, watch me do my little trick. I originally had a story to share about Todd Howard going into a Chipotle, but that turned out to be a joke. So now, can you play the Cult of Astrology bit? Can you find that one?
Welcome to the Cult of Astrology.
Very well. I have an article here from Jeff Grubb, who recently tweeted that Starfield is going to be a Xbox exclusive, Xbox and PC exclusive. So he goes on and he wrote up an article about it. So Jeff Grubb is an industry insider, which kind of means that sometimes they know things that other people don't know. But with industry insiders, a lot of the time they are also journalists, and he's an active journalist on VentureBeat and GamesBeat, which is I think what he runs. I'm not sure of his actual title. I follow him on a few things, so I mean, a lot of the stuff he says is credible. Sometimes it's like he's talking a lot about Elden Ring, and there's it's like, how do you confirm that kind of stuff? Because Elden Ring is so far out, which is the Dark Souls company's game. Anyways, he went on to write up an article about why he has said that, and he's heard it from, I think he said 5 different people, that he knows that Xbox and PC are going to be, Starfield is going to be exclusive to those platforms. But here's the thing.
What's the thing?
And here's where we're getting into the Cult of Astrology. What does Xbox want you to think right now? That Starfield is going to be an exclusive, and you need to go buy an Xbox so that you can, because guess what? Supplies are limited.
Right.
You need to go get an Xbox. So here's the thing. I don't know if I believe this. Everyone's confirming it. A lot of sites are taking this as a confirmation, even though Bethesda or Microsoft has not said anything of the sort. He goes on to explain his reasoning also as to why that makes sense and why it may be useful to have it on Games Pass. So I think that this is, I'm kind of like, going back on my word from last week, where I said that a video game company would not do any kind of controlled leaks, and that doesn't make any sense. This may be like Microsoft and Bethesda controlled leak. Where it's like, okay, we're gonna say right now through this third party that we're not actually gonna come out and say it, because if they actually wanted to come out and say it, they'd have done it at the last big call where they all sat around the couches and had a bunch of hosts. This seems like a little like bugging somebody's ear, like a little, go tell them that maybe they'll, this will sell some Xboxes. Go do that thing. See, that's
your thought on this?
That's my thought. What do you think?
I think that they are trying to pressure Sony into allowing Game Pass on PlayStation. I think that's what they're doing. And they're going, you want to make sure that you keep selling consoles. This game's going to be huge. It's only going to be on Xbox and PC unless people can play Game Pass games on their PlayStation.
So here's another. I'm so happy you said that, because I have a wonderful bouncing off point for that. So there's this big Apple versus Epic court thing going on, and a lot of things are coming out about both the sides. One of the things that came out today is they're talking about xCloud services. And they were sharing some of Nintendo and Microsoft's partnerships over xCloud. Like there was apparently a partnership, but a ton of it is redacted. It's like, for security purposes, this is all being redacted. Which leads me to believe that Nintendo Switch is going to get Games Pass at some point, or they are in the talks of putting Games Pass on Nintendo Switch.
I bet that Microsoft is talking to everybody, because it even streams to other platforms. Like it can stream to your phone. They're going to everyone. They're probably even talking with smart TV manufacturers about making this an app that runs on the smart TV.
The problem is, it's in beta right now. It's on beta for phones. And I did like the free trial of it. It does not run great. on a phone. And I have a pretty good, like I would say, a pretty good internet connection. It does not, like, I can do Stadia. Stadia is something I did like a free, or I was in the test run when they were doing the AC Origins in the test run. They were doing that streaming technology, and that ran great. It was like, there was a little bit, it was like because I can play like remote play on my phone through my PlayStation, and there's like sometimes like a little bit of lag, and I'll do that less if I stream. That's what I'm doing, is I'm playing remote play and just streaming that screen. And there's sometimes a little bit of lag, but for the most part, no. But I'm very curious now what I don't think now that they are going to make it exclusive, but I think they are really trying hard to threaten people into not consumers, but threaten these manufacturers of technology to get Games Pass.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's going to work for Sony. I don't think that Sony's going to bite. I feel like that Sony is, Xbox is one thing that they have going for them is they're not too far up their own butt, but Sony definitely is. That's one of the key features of the Sony company. So I don't think that's going to be the case for them, but there's definitely like some like big level marketing that I feel like is going on for that. I don't think it's for Starfield. I don't think that it's like, we're intentionally leaking details about Starfield's story and about the world. I feel like that it's more, we're trying to drive the narrative, like how when Netflix gets a new show, like the one with the lady with the birds in the box or whatever. Don't look in the box. I forgot what
I don't know what you're talking about.
But like there was memes about it wasn't Julia Roberts, it was the other one, Sandra Bullock. Okay. And she was like blind. They put a blindfold on her and you couldn't look at the monsters. And that was the whole thing. You couldn't look at them. And then they did the ones where it was like the monsters can only hear your noise. Anyways. But there were memes of that everywhere. And it was part of Netflix's like a mass media campaign where they were like, we're going to like inject ourselves into this dynamic. And I feel like Microsoft is really trying to do that for Games Pass and inject themselves kind of through some unintentional leaks or some things that may not be fully true, but they're gonna leak it or give it to somebody to say, okay, how about you tell them? It's just like tell them. Yeah. Tell them that it's.
I think you're right. I don't think this is they don't need to sell more Xboxes because they're going out. They can't keep them in stock, but they do need to sell other companies on putting Game Pass on their system. Because if they can get Game Pass on everything, then there's no reason not to get Game Pass regardless of whatever system you have, if you want to play something like Starfield. Plus, now if you're a PlayStation person, you own a PlayStation console and you want to play Starfield, that's the only way to do it unless you buy a new system. And you still can't buy the game outright. You have to have Game Pass to do it, which means that you have to be subscribed and stay subscribed if you want to play, which is not a $60 sell. It's a indefinite amount of money sell. And then once you get them on Game Pass, they get hooked on some of the other games on there. And then they want to stay on Game Pass for those things, just like Netflix. Oh, I found this other series. I'm going to watch that now. I found another series. I'm going to watch that now. Oh, I can't wait till, whatever else comes back on Netflix. And then you forget to even discontinue your subscription, even when you're not using it.
Right. And right now they're doing a low buy-in. So it's like, you get like however many, like $20, or you get like, right now I think there's like a deal where you get like 3 months for like $1 or something like that. Yeah. Like they are trying to get people onto this, much like how Netflix did, where they're saying, okay, well, we're going to make this really cheap. And then we're going to bump up the prices later once we have a big, essentially install base. And I really think that they are going to push that, which is surprising. It's super surprising that their low end Xbox is $300. I thought it was going to be lower. I thought it was going to be like here's a stick, like a Chromecast, essentially. Like here's a Chromecast that does like 4K gaming or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but maybe that's where they're going. Like.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but if you can price that at $100, then I'm going out there and I'm buying one if they have it,
Right.
Like there's kind of a level of like, if it is, just exclusive to to Xbox and PC, then I'm like, okay, well, I gotta decide whether I want an actual like a graphics card that runs something or an Xbox, and it's probably gonna be cheaper to get an Xbox to go run the things. But if they put out Games Pass, the Switch, and other stuff like that, then if I can just play it on the Switch and I don't really care about, you know, getting it at 4K or whatever, then that's good. As long as it runs. Right now, my PC I tried to do Fallout 4 on it, and it's hilarious. It's like really hilarious.
Like 4 frames per second. Hilarious.
Yeah. Textures don't load in, and so like the opening where you're in the kitchen, the floor isn't there.
Nice.
And so it's like that Netflix show. You know, the floor is lava, except
Sweet.
the floor is non-existent. It's kind of like for like Cthulhu mythos, the floor is non-existent.
Sweet. Well, Dave, I feel like we're at the end. I feel like we are
at the end.
Wrap up the show, man. If you guys can't tell that we're excited, and we're a very high or past the scale of excitement on whatever that scale was that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, then you haven't been listening, I guess. But we would love to hear your thoughts. Please let us know your thoughts on this stuff. Dave, do you have anything else going on before we head out?
I have I redeemed a thing on Twitch for Tom to stretch. He had to stretch right now. That's a great content for audio listeners.
I can
Tom
make
is
stretch sounds.
stretching. I have Vault Boys WV, which is a weekly podcast where I talk about weird news. We're in the middle of kind of like, we've got a new, like the show is as it is now. We're kind of doing some rebranding on the back end to make it a little, because we don't really talk much about Fallout anymore. But it's all kinds of weird news. And it's like, what was it this week? Did you know that the Great Wall of China, the mortar is actually a sticky rice? Like, did you know that? That's like a real thing.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what they had.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you know that cats are afraid of cucumbers?
No, because I don't have a cat, but that's cool.
Right. So there's a number of different things that you can learn. It's always a fun time. It's an hour-long podcast every week. Comes out on Wednesdays. You can watch it at 5 p.m. on Twitch at VaultBoysWV, twitch.tv/VaultBoysWV. And it's on all the podcast services. It's on the Robots Radio Network. And me and Tom also do this podcast called Fallout Hub, which next week we've got a very special guest. We got Danny coming on. Danny is what's his last name? I don't want to butcher it.
Oh God, I'm so bad with names.
I threw this on you.
I don't remember.
Really I think it's Shigora. Danny Shigora, maybe.
Yes, something like that. But
yeah, something like that.
He's
the voice of Hancock in Fallout 4, and does some other voice work and some music and stuff. And we're having him on next week for some like ghoul trivia.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun trivia game and an interview and stuff. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And it's all for fundraising for the Fallout for Hope campaign, which I'm going to pull up the details on right now. But I'm not going to do it very fast, but I am going to walk you through it. But while I'm pulling up those details, how about I hand it over to Tom and ask him what he's got going on?
So we'll go over the details right at the end. So I'm in the process of revising the Robots Radio website. It's now fixed, so it doesn't say that like your connection is insecure. It feels bad about itself. That's the right word, right? Insecure. But so I revised it a little bit, but it is in the process of being revamped completely. So that's kind of exciting. And then we've got the Robots Radio Rocket Club, which is awesome. We've got 11 different creators right now, soon to be 12. Somebody else is signing up. And these are people who I help out with their podcasts and get them launched and created and all sorts of things in order to make sure that they can do a successful show. So that's available as well at robotsradio.net if you want to look into that. And of course, we do all these other shows. If it has Lorecast in it, it might be one of mine. If it says Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Cyberpunk, D&D, Mass Effect, or Starfield, that's one of my shows. And
is there another Lorecast show that's not yours that somebody else has like commandeered?
Yes. So there's the Selectives Lorecast, which is an Elder Scrolls lore podcast.
Okay, well that's Aaron Mithias, and he's fine. We all like him. Yeah, but I'm talking about some posers.
No, there's some of the people on the Robots Radio Rocket Club are starting Lorecasts of their own, which is fun. So there's going to be a Resident Evil Lorecast that's going to come out.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
There's going to be I'm in the process of working on launching a Witcher lorecast this summer.
Whoa.
It's going to be and there's another one. There's I forget what it is. I don't know if they've determined exactly what it is yet, but potentially another lorecast out there. Anyway, lots of fun stuff. So go check out everything at robotsradio.net. Do you have your info, Dave?
No, I don't. I looked through his whole Twitter and I couldn't find the info, but it's Fallout for Hope. We're raising money. I think it's about planting trees.
Yes.
It's a great time. You should come and donate. It's always fun. Ken's going to be, Ken doesn't listen to this, so I can just say whatever. Ken is a giant giraffe and he lives in the Amazon forest, and you wonder why giraffes are in the Amazon forest. But that's next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Come hang out. It's going to be on podcast services later, but you should come live and donate some money to Fallout for Hope.
Yes. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time, probably in the next 2 weeks, unless we have a hot leak. Dun, dun, dun. See you next time.
Listening to the podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this show.
Did you know that parodies are copyright protected?
Tell a friend and review
on iTunes
or other services. Dave and Tom excited for Starfield. Let's all speculate and wear no shoes.
Hey, why aren't we wearing any shoes?
Because shoes rhymes with iTunes, and that's the best I could think of.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you like bad movies?
Do you find yourself defending bad movies, saying things like, well, the soundtrack was okay, or the costumes were pretty fun?
From the previous hosts of It's Not That Bad podcast, we bring you Fresh Tomatoes, the movie podcast, from Simone LaRue and Chad Ekovitz.
Every week, we review 2 movies that did not do well critically, but we say, hey, there are some nice things about them. Maybe Rotten Tomatoes was wrong.
Maybe they're all fools, and you should watch these movies regardless. We'll also talk about scenes that could have saved it, and we'll often refer to Simone's cats because they're amazing and adorable, and we love them.
And at the end of each review, we will tell you whether we would watch this movie again, or in what circumstances we would recommend you watch this movie.
So, join us on July 9th for the first drop of our main episode, and then 2 days later for our drop of our minisodes.
And on Robots Radio Podcast Network. Come see us on July 9th. We love you so much already. Bye!
Bye.
Ahoy there, ye landlubbers! Avast! My name is Captain Logan, and I'll be your guide out on the Sea of Thieves. If you love the idea of stealing treasure, cutting down cursed skeletons, fighting off krakens, and raiding forts filled to the brim with shinies, then Sea of Thieves is the game for you. Join me each week as I dive into the news and bring back the nuggets of information that any sailor worth their weight in salt would desire. You don't have to be a pirate legend to gain access to my podcast. Just search for Keelhauled, a Sea of Thieves podcast in your podcast app of choice, or head over to robotsradio.net or captainlogan.podbeam.com and get ready to set sail for adventure. Arrgh.